What's up, guys? It's Trix back with another video. Today I just wanted to run through the characters I'm bringing into the Omega level threat missions when the first one comes out at the next patch. Before we do that, be sure to like and subscribe for more content, but let's get right into it. Now, we still don't know exactly what the Omega level threat missions will bring to the table, but the two things that we do know is that they will be the hardest content in the game thus far, and they will be mandatory 4-player co-op, meaning you cannot do them solo, you have to go in with a team of 4. All right, so these builds that I'm about to show you are definitely subject to change once the Omega level threats do come out and the community starts to figure out what works and what doesn't. But these are my best builds that are really geared towards 4-player co-op and the very hardest content in the game. Now, these builds are absolutely not perfect, but they are my builds that I am most confident in currently that are tuned enough for the next hardest thing that we get. Ideally, I'd like to be able to bring all of my characters, through the Omega level threats, and with a little time and depending on, how hard they are when they come out, I'm sure that will be possible. But truthfully, at this point, there are a few characters in the game that I simply just play a fraction of the time as others and can't confidently say they're among my best characters. But without further ado, let's jump right into the first character. All right, guys, so the first character that I'll be bringing into the Omega level threats, this is my main. This is Captain America. Now, this particular build of Captain America, I'm not going to go too deep into any of these builds, but just kind of high level what I'm going to be using and why I think it'll be good. So this build is a ranged tank Captain America. It's got high precision and high defense, mostly focusing on resolve. And, looking at some of the different pieces of gear here, some of it not really too fancy. This this melee piece, I'm mostly using it just for the signature attacks deal gamma damage. Now, if you don't know, there is currently a bug, I guess you could say, with Captain America, basically the old gamma bug where gamma damage just did a ton of extra damage. For whatever reason, it does still work with Captain America, but only while he's in Brooklyn Brawler. So this piece here, it's just a nice precision piece on a melee piece, which, whenever you have a piece of melee gear, if you're playing a ranged character, definitely want to find a piece with precision. But this one also has the added benefit of having signature attacks deal gamma damage. So, when you're in Brooklyn Brawler doing your captain's call, going to spread a lot of gamma damage around. Really easy way for Cap to take down tankier targets and bosses, things like that. Obviously, if they fix gamma damage, that's fine. You could just play the build without it. It's still just a very basic piece of gear. The reason I'm not using other pieces such as, these inserts of the Storm, or even better, these Iron Gloves of the Super Soldier, a lot of Cap's melee pieces, pieces that have hitting an enemy with a melee crit activate something. Unfortunately, those don't really work very well on Captain America because they don't trigger during his Brooklyn Brawler. We don't know why that is. It's just kind of how it is. So really having perks like that are fairly dead unless you plan on using, a melee Captain America outside of Brooklyn Brawler, which is really not a viable build in my opinion. So in this case, really just using the melee piece as a stat stick and, for that signature attacks deal gamma damage. But again, if gamma, gets fixed on Captain America, this piece is absolutely still fine. Coming over to the range piece, same idea. This is a high precision, high resilience piece. Really nice, just a nice legendary piece here. Weak point attacks grant a damage buff. That's absolutely great. That triggers very regularly off of your range power attacks when they start ricocheting around. Range power attacks deal gamma damage. Again, kind of doubling down on that gamma piece. All right. And then extra increased damage from power attacks, which is all we're going to be doing. So this is just really a nice power attack piece for a ranged build. Now, again, if they do fix gamma damage, this is still a fantastic piece, but the only other piece I would consider with this build, especially being a tanky build, is this piece right here, Conduit of the Super Soldier, and really for that power precision taunt. Now, again, we'll have to see exactly what the Omega level threats bring to the table, how difficult they are, but being that this is a very tanky Captain America build, this is absolutely a piece of gear I fully expect to use regularly. In fact, it's probably even going to be the one that I start most missions with and then maybe switch to the gamma piece, during boss fights and large enemies, things like that. But really for that power precision taunt, again, going to be using power attacks primarily with this build, and this is a very reliable taunt, right? You use your power attack, it ricochets all over the place, and then every person it hits is a roughly 50% chance to taunt the enemy after a ranged power attack. So, most of the enemies that you hit are going to be taunted. And remember, you're a ranged damage, but also tank build. So I think that's going to be really useful. Again, we'll have to see, but that's my guess, is that in a 4-player mission, in a thick fight, in these Omega level missions, I think having, a dedicated kind of tanky character with a reliable taunt, I think that'll be a real added benefit to the team. But then again, we can certainly swap these pieces back and forth. All right, coming to the chest piece, this one's pretty straightforward. I've got this reactive buff piece. Not the greatest stats, got a little precision, which is nice. Might, we're not utilizing too much of. So the stats are not great on it, but it's got some really good perks. Chance on taking damage to grant a damage buff, of course, because we're a tank, that's fantastic. And then willpower burst while critically injured, that's a really great perk as well, especially for a tank. So 2 really good perks there. The Daze Safeguard, not super useful, but not a completely dead perk either. So right now, this is the piece I'm using. It's very reliable to get a damage buff from, so especially if you're using a piece up here that doesn't give a damage buff, this is a really nice way to get one. All right, and then coming down to the very last piece, so I'm using the Safeguard of the Super Soldier. This could be better. It's got pretty good stats on it. Definitely not complaining at all about these stats, and the perks are really nice as well. The increased damage from Rally Cry, increased charge rate of the support, which of course is the Rally Cry, and then Heroic Charge Burst when defeating 3 enemies, which happens quite regularly. This piece could be better if it was actually the Helm of the Super Soldier. Unfortunately, I do have one Helm of the Super Soldier, but this is one I got very early in the game and just have held on to. I would like to get another version of this now that the stats can roll much higher. This would be slightly better. The increased duration of the Rally Cry, which it says 3 seconds, but it's really more like 5 seconds. That is very, very good, especially with Cap now. The Rally Cry will actually pause when you do his takedowns. More on that later, but this piece is probably the ideal piece for this. It's just a really good support piece. Rally Cry is something I think, in a 4-player co-op mission, you're going to want that up all the time. It's an extremely powerful debuff on enemies. Even if your cap isn't really the damage dealer, this is a tanky build, right? So it's tanky. It's doing ranged damage, and it's going to have Rally Cry up pretty much all the time. So you're going to, between Rally Cry and damage buff, you're going to be doing significant damage from ranged anyway, but then, of course, helping out your teammates, right? That's really the name of the game here. But the piece I've got now currently, it's just got much better stats. The only difference, instead of the extra duration of the Rally Cry, it's just got defeat 3 enemies to get a Heroic Charge Burst, which is still very nice as well. All right, and then for the minor artifacts, now we can get a little flexible here, right? So I'm right now just at default. I'm expecting to run double orange ISO just for the tankiness, but we can definitely flex that in to maybe be, 1 orange and 1 blue if maybe that amount of tankiness is not required. You can go maybe a little bit of tankiness and a little bit more offense, or you can go a lot more offense and a lot less tankiness. Probably not going to do that. Probably going to keep at least 1 orange on, but I'm going to start with 2, and we'll just kind of see how it goes from there. If a little more damage is valuable is possible, then we'll do that. But being how I expect to do a lot of taunting and things like that, I definitely think being that high tankiness will be quite nice as well. And then for the Mage of Artifact, no brainer here, we're using the Ring of Nebelung. Absolutely fantastic on Captain America, probably the best major artifact in the game on most characters, but definitely on Captain America as well. And the thing about this build too, I think this will be good because it's a nice balance between range support and kind of and tankiness, right? So the value to me, I've been playing a lot of Captain America. He's been my main since day one. And really, a lot of people, I think, make the mistake of going very high melee rating on Captain America, which I do not believe is extremely necessary. The reason is, I think his value is really in the fact that he can do takedowns so easily on enemies and stay in his Brooklyn Brawler forever. Because of that, once an enemy is below a certain point, it doesn't matter if the takedown doesn't kill them. You can just do another takedown. So once an enemy is down below a certain health, they are going to die. It's inevitable. Captain America will eventually kill them. And if he does less damage, he's just going to be doing more and more takedowns. And that's going to be more orbs, not only for you, but for your teammates. You're going to be able to stay in your Brooklyn Brawler longer. You're going to be able to keep Rally Cry up longer. And you're going to be able to just do takedowns left and right and just kind of be that enforcer on the battlefield that makes sure that no enemy, once they're below a certain point, they are going to die. There's no coming back for them. So that's really where I see the value in Captain America. I don't think you need a lot more damage on him. I think more damage is a little unnecessary. Again, because if you have so much damage on him, you might even jump enemies past the point where they can be taken down. And he gets a plenty good damage buff, even with very little melee rating. If you have your damage buff active and you're in your Brooklyn Brawler does absolutely fine damage. You'll absolutely be able to get guys down, do takedowns. They'll be staggered. They'll be, impacted. Everything will be good. And then again, you're not meant to be the damage dealer on the team, right? So if you've got another damage dealer on the team, you got, all enemies or all teammates are hitting all these enemies. They're all going to low health. Captain America's there to clean them up and to provide orbs and just keep everybody flowing as far as heroics. So that's my cap. That's what I plan on going with. I think it's a really, really nice balance. I think the taunt will be very good. And if the taunt doesn't turn out to be very good, we can always just go with more of just a pure damage ranged build as well. But either way, that's what my cap is going to be. I'm excited to play him. He's going to be my main. And yeah, so moving on to the next character. All right, guys, next character that I believe is ready for Omega level threats is my Black Widow. Now, this is a ranged Black Widow build. This is a high caliber pistol build. Now, Black Widow was originally a character that I didn't really play too much of, but she was recently buffed, kind of stealth buffed. And it wasn't a buff specifically to Widow, but it's a buff to kind of everybody in the game that really made her. She really got the brunt of the effect, because what they did was originally when you perform takedowns on any enemy, all of your skills, all of your buffs would still continue to tick down. So for Widow, her invisibility, you got about a second and a quarter back every time you killed an enemy, but her invisibility would still continue to tick down. So you kind of had to really be doing takedowns left and right, generating orbs just to make sure you got enough back to stay in your invisibility. Now, the buff that they've done is that the invisibility no longer ticks. So your ultimate and your support ability, and pretty much any other buff you get, that includes damage buff, defense buff, tachyon, surge, whatever, any buff on the left-hand side of your screen that counts down, when you do a takedown now, those numbers all pause. They didn't used to pause, but now they pause. That's extremely, extremely powerful for Widow, because she can perform takedowns automatically on low health enemies while she's invisible. So really what this build is, it's a range support build that also has a high uptime of your invisibility. Now, there's a couple of pieces that really make this build tick. Now, this, our melee piece here, we're really not looking for much here. It's really just a stat stick more than anything. I just got a piece with very nice Valor precision, a little proficiency. It's not perfect. I could probably use a little more defense on here, but I'm happy with the piece I have now. And this range piece, now this is not the most perfect element that I could have had. I got these during the, the Ruskaya protocols, when they kind of gave a hive mind exotic to every character. Stats are pretty good, not the best stats that they could have been. And you'll notice it's all gamma, right? So gamma is fine. It's not the best on Widow because she can apply shock automatically. The fact that I got the ranged attacks, high cal, gamma, and the gamma potentiator is fantastic. It works really nice. It's my gamma damage is very, very strong. My ranged attacks are extremely powerful. Ideally though, I would have just liked to have this exact same piece but with plasma or cosmic. One of the two. Probably not Pim, just because Pim can be a little difficult to hit enemies with attacks once you've shrunk them. But if I could just get, either of the other two negative elements to go with Widow's shock, because Widow can put out her Widow's bite, do an, auto shock to really any single target. And then you could follow up with whatever your ranged piece is and get that battery effect. But I can tell you this build already, it's hitting, when you're hitting headshots with a damage buff, you're looking at close to 200,000 per high caliber shot. So if you factor in, putting shock damage on somebody and then having the battery effect trigger, you could be looking at, 300,000 and change just from one shot of a high caliber shot. So it's absolutely fantastic. Really, really strong. All right. And then for our chest piece, nothing too fancy here. It's just a high stat roll legendary with reactive buff. So taking damage grants a damage buff. I like taking damage granting a damage buff. It's a really easy way to get a damage buff on a lot of characters. It works really well in Tachyon missions, and I'm expecting, in the Clone Labs, there's going to be a lot of those like little lasers. There's always little enemies that just hit you for like no damage. You know what I'm talking about. The little turrets that shoot like the red lasers, or they shoot those little white lasers that they really don't do any damage to you, but they can trigger your damage buff perks. It's very easy to just get damage buff. It's up all the time. But if I find that I need a little more defensiveness, I can always go with reactive protection. So I do like something like this on Widow or some of the squishier characters where taking the damage will actually get you a defense buff. That's actually quite nice. Defense buff, if you don't know, kind of similar to damage buff, pretty much exactly as it sounds. It's just like another buff on the side of the screen and basically mitigates all your damage by half. So you just start taking half damage. Really, really strong. And then proximity, armored in proximity to other teammates, really, really good as well. Nice to have that little extra bonus. So this is a piece I could audible to if, I find that I'm taking too much damage or that Widow is just a little too squishy. But right now, this is my primary way of getting a damage buff. So that's what I'm keeping, and the stats are very good. And the other thing to remember about the build is I'm going to be invisible a lot of the time anyway. And I know that doesn't always apply to every enemy that hits you, right? But I think it'll be, we'll have to see, how it goes in Cloning Labs, how much cover there is, because this is meant to be a ranged build. You're not really going to be in the thick of it, right? So you're going to be able to dodge things and just kind of put in damage from far away, but then being invisible if guys are up in your face and things like that. Okay. And then the last piece here, this is a piece I've got that's, I got this recently. It is absolutely bonkers. This is the Red Room Coil. You get this from the last Avengers standing mission. I've got an incredibly high stat roll on it. All stats that are fantastic. And the perks, of course, are amazing. So guaranteed crit chance from behind while you're invisible, extra damage while you're invisible, and increase the duration of your invisibility by 3 seconds. Like Captain America's Rally Cry, it's more like 5 seconds. It's not 3. But this is absolutely fantastic. Again, like I said, if you're doing takedowns, which you're not going to be doing too many, but if you do them, you have the auto ability to do takedowns while you're invisible and someone's below a certain amount of health. You can absolutely do them, and it'll increase the duration of that invisibility as well. But then the crit chance from behind, really, really powerful, increased damage while invisibility is active. All really powerful, especially, with your high cal shot, even with your full auto shot. Full auto, if they get a little too close to you, you're getting a little overwhelmed by a lot of enemies, or you use high cal shot and just put in that damage from range. Either one of them works really, really well. That's what I plan on doing. And really the reason this, tree and kind of build works is really because of this Shadow Gifts perk right here. Now, enemies defeated while Veil of Shadows is active have a 35% chance to drop heroic orbs. So The reason this is so good is because that 35% is actually 100%. I don't know why it says 35. It's just bugged. It's been bugged since the beginning of the game. When you kill an enemy while you're invisible, as long as you're the one who deals the final blow, they will 100% generate a heroic orb. It is 100% of the time. It always happens. Okay. So with that said, you're going to be generating so many orbs. You're going to be generating more orbs than you know what to do with. You're going to have your assault heroics flowing. You're going to have your invisibility back up instantly. Everything is going to be looking good. Okay. So really, I mean, you don't have to go, you really don't have to, worry too much. You kind of just put in damage from range, stay invisible, and I think this is a very powerful high damage build. I also have a good amount of Valor as well because Valor affects your crit multi, okay? And you got to remember the Red Room Coil increased, chance of landing a crit when attacking someone from behind. It doesn't happen all the time. Obviously, it kind of takes, you have to kind of get in position, but you're attacking enemies from behind at least half the time, right? So it really does proc this perk quite a bit. So definitely very, very powerful, and that crit multi, very, very nice to have. So that's my Widow, very high damage, a little bit of a glass cannon, but again, a ranged character that stays kind of out of the fight and can stay invisible when necessary. All right, guys, that's Widow. Let's move on to the next one. All right, guys, last on the list, we have Iron Man. You all know Iron Man. He is absolutely fantastic. This is obviously ranged, high precision, a little bit tanky Iron Man. This build is very straightforward, and it can actually go I can be built kind of two different ways here. So really going with these pieces. Top piece here, nothing too fancy for the melee piece. Decent stats on the resilience and precision, both good perks to have. And then we're really using this for that armory boon. Increased crit hit chance from all weapons. Of course, all of our damage is going to be coming from all of our weapons. So absolutely, it's just a flat 12.5 increased crit chance with decent stats. Absolutely fantastic as a melee slot. Coming over to our range gear. Now, this is where we have a little bit of option. All right. Now, I have it right now set up as a missile build. Now, I know missiles are very, very powerful, but I also do like using Iron Man as a laser build as well. Okay. So you could see here, this is a pretty nice Repulsor of the Storm, high resolve, high precision, right? Two great stats. Adept Invulnerability, not amazing, but can proc once in a while. Missiles deal Cosmic, absolutely fantastic, right? Because Iron Man can automatically shock people with his arc overcharge. So being able to pair that with Cosmic is absolutely outstanding. And then, of course, chance when hitting enemy with a ranged crit to activate Tachyon Surge, right? So you're going to get that extra 50 and change bonus damage. Really, really fantastic. A beautiful piece for a missile build. Absolutely spectacular. But if I want to switch things up to a laser build, I've also got this piece here. This is another Repulsor of the Storm. Again, great stats, precision, valor, and resolve. A little bit lower on each, but still three great perks that we love to have. You can ignore kind of the top piece, the repulsors. We don't use that, but then lasers dealing cosmic damage, okay? And then same thing, the targeted Tachyon Surge, right? Hitting an enemy with a ranged crit, Tachyon Surge, boom, right? So you could do it one or two ways. You could set yourself up for lasers if that's kind of the play style you're feeling, or you could set yourself up for missiles. They're both cosmic. They both work well with Iron Man's shock. They're both fantastic. And now when I use the laser build, I tend to get a little more mobile. If you've seen my stream, you've seen me play the laser build, you can do a couple of different things. I really like the lasers because I feel like they're a lot more flexible. I like to actually fly around with my lasers, right? Stay mobile, air dodge, and then just kind of use the auto targeting that comes with firing lasers while flying. That's really, really strong, really powerful. Okay. But I also like missiles as well. They deal more single target damage. They're a little, I don't want to say clunkier. They're a little less spread out, I guess I'll say, than the laser build. I feel like the lasers give you a lot more, damage across multiple targets, where the missiles are more just really high damage, but to one target, right? But then I like to set these up where I'll kind of use the arc shield with the bubble, stay maybe out and away inside with a barrier, and then just kind of shoot missiles out, for whatever 14, 15 seconds that you have that arc overcharge, and it's absolute money there as well. And then same thing, you can come into bosses, give them the arc overcharge, give them the shock damage, and then use cosmic missiles. Really fantastic damage. It's a high range damage build. You see my range rating is over 3,000, but still with a high defense. I still like to make sure I got some resolve and resilience, so his defense rating is still very high as well. And that comes in really nicely because I've got this piece right here, another reactive buff, same as you've seen on other characters, chance when taking damage to grant a damage buff, right? So this is my primary damage buff right now, all right? And then willpower burst when critically injured. So really, really good. If you do get injured, and it's not on cooldown, you'll get that health right back. So really, really good perks, 2 really good perks, along with pretty good stats on this piece. Not the highest of stats in the world, but 2 stats that are really good, right? No dead stats. So this is a really great way to get a damage buff. And then coming over here, I do have another way to get a damage buff here. This is just a pretty nicely rolled epic piece. It's by no means the best piece I've ever seen, but chance when defeating enemies to grant a damage buff as well. So just making sure we can keep up that damage buff. Increased charge rate of support heroic by 16%. So that's nice. Of course, his support heroic is his best heroic, right? That's the arc overcharge. Really, really nice to have there. What I could also use as well, I've got a few of these other pieces. I got this piece right here, Reactor of the Storm. This is one I could easily sub in. The stats aren't as great as the other piece, but it's got another way to kind of get that tachyon surge, and it's got the cosmic potentiator, which is the extra damage to cosmic, which of course I'm using cosmic on both my missiles and my lasers. This piece is good, very good as well. I feel like the tachyon surge is not the piece you need the redundancy on. I feel like once you have damage buff, it's very easy to get tachyon surge because it just requires a ranged crit. As long as you have your damage buff up, you're going to get ranged crits. They're very easy to get, okay? So I think the damage buff is the one you want to double down on to make sure that you can really keep that up reliably, and then the tachyon surge just comes in from there, all right? So that's the way I've got my Iron Man set up, and then again, coming over here, it's just flat blue ISOs. If I wanted to, I could sub in, possibly an orange one, but I don't think he really needs the defense. The yellow doesn't really work too well on him. And then for the major artifact, it's the Tactagon. This is definitely the best in terms of pure damage for Iron Man, at least when you're using Cosmic. If I was using PIM, then I'd go with the Void Tech Transponder, but I think just for right now, Shock and Cosmic being his kind of pair here, I think the Tactagon is the way to go. The only other thing I could see for Iron Man, depending on team composition, and who you got on your team, like you saw with my support Cap and my ranged Widow, both of those builds generate a lot of orbs, okay? So, if you're playing with someone on your team who's generating a ton of orbs, or maybe multiple players that are generating a ton of orbs, more orbs than anyone needs, so that all characters can just stay topped off, you might even want to consider moving over to the Ring of Nebelong. Even though Iron Man himself doesn't generate too many orbs, you're still going to be able, if your teammates are generating orbs, you're going to absolutely be going crazy with this ring to really be able to get your arc charge back and just be able to get back in the fight, to just get those unlimited missiles, unlimited lasers, all that good stuff. But that's my Iron Man. I think he's absolutely fantastic. I love playing Iron Man. He's one of my favorite characters to play. And I think that this build in particular is really set up nicely for success in high-end missions. I think this character is really tuned quite nice on my end. I know he's not the most, unique character, I guess I'll say, but I really enjoy playing him, and I think he's fantastic. All right, anyway, so that's it for my characters, guys. Let me know down in the comments who you plan on playing as in the Omega level threats. Like I said, of course, when the actual Omega level threats come out, I would love to have all of my characters be able to play in them. And, some of them are probably pretty close, but just these 3 are definitely like my top characters right now. I could probably also get away with playing like a Hulk, who's just, a bone shaker right into Thunderclap, high valor build. I just think mine's a little bit too much of a glass cannon. And then like Hawkeye, I don't really play too much. Kate Bishop, I definitely think could get in there. She's just very straightforward with the scattershot arrows, very consistent damage. Really, really nice. And then my Thor and my Ms. Marvel, I definitely have to work on before I think I can bring them in. But anyway, that's it for me, not to go on too much of a rant. Let me know down in the comments who you are going in your very first Omega level threat with, who's going to be your main that you're bringing in. And that's it, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow on Twitch, join the Discord, follow on Twitter, all that good stuff. All those links are in the description. I'll see you in the next one.